In a land where history and modernity collide, something urgent is unfolding. Imagine a tapestry woven with ancient stories, vibrant cultures, and a clash of beliefs that echoes through the ages. Picture bustling markets, sacred sites, and voices rising in the streets. What if I told you that right now, Israel is at a crossroads that could change everything? As tensions simmer, the world watches closely, intrigued and anxious. What drives this urgency? Is it a call for peace or a cry for justice? Every moment counts as events unfold, each one more gripping than the last. With every heartbeat, the pulse of a nation grows louder and the stakes climb higher. But here's the twist. The story is far more complex than it appears. Layers of history, politics, and culture intertwine, creating a narrative that demands your attention. Have you ever wondered what lies beneath the surface? What unseen forces are shaping the future of this remarkable region? Stay with me as we peel back the layers of this urgent situation, revealing the truths that might surprise you. Buckle up, because this journey is just beginning. Historical and geopolitical context. Growing up, I always found history fascinating, especially when it came to understanding complex conflicts, like that between Israelis and Palestinians. The roots of this strife go deep, intertwined with issues of territory, identity, and power. It's essential to recognize that this is not just a modern-day conflict. It's a narrative steeped in centuries of tension. The land known today as Israel and the Palestinian territories has been a crossroads of civilizations for millennia, each group laying claim to its significance. The Balfour Declaration of 1917 is often cited as a pivotal moment. It promised a national home for the Jewish people in Palestine, while simultaneously disregarding the Arab population's aspiration. Fast forward to the mid-20th century, and we see the ramifications of World War II and the Holocaust prompting a mass migration of Jews to the region. This influx exacerbated tensions, leading to the establishment of Israel in 1948 and the subsequent Arab-Israeli War. The outcomes of these events have left deep scars, fueling decades of resentment and violence. Moreover, the role of regional and global powers cannot be underestimated. Various countries, driven by their interests, have intervened in the conflict, often complicating the resolution process. The United States has historically been a staunch ally of Israel, while nations like Iran and various Arab states have supported Palestinian factions. This interplay of international politics often overshadows the voices of those living on the ground, who are caught in the crossfire of a geopolitical chess game. Understanding this context is crucial to grasp the ongoing dynamics. It's like peeling back layers of an onion. Each layer reveals a new facet of the historical narrative that has shaped the current landscape. One can't help but feel a sense of urgency to address these historical injustices as they continue to inform today's realities. History is not just about the past, it's about how that past shapes our present and future. Recent events. When I look at the headlines these days, it's hard to ignore how recent events have escalated tensions even further. It's almost like a tragic cycle that keeps repeating itself. Just when it seems like there might be a glimmer of hope for peace, a new incident occurs, reigniting hostilities. For instance, the recent rocket attacks and military responses have not only resulted in loss of life, but have also deepened the chasm between the two sides. What caught my attention was how quickly things can spiral out of control. A single event, whether it's a violent clash, an assassination, or a provocative statement, can spark widespread violence. It's a reminder of how fragile the situation is, where one miscalculation could lead to devastating consequences. The reactions from both sides often escalate the conflict further, with retaliatory strikes and military buildup becoming the norm. Political leaders also play a significant role in shaping these events. Their statements can either calm tensions or fan the flames. It's fascinating, yet disheartening, to see how political rhetoric can lead to real-world violence. One moment, a leader might call for dialogue, and the next, they're endorsing military action, leaving civilians to bear the brunt of these decisions. As I delve into the specifics of these recent occurrences, I can't help but feel a sense of helplessness. The cycle of violence seems relentless, with civilians caught in the crossfire. Families are uprooted, lives are lost, and the hope for a peaceful resolution fades a little more with each passing day. It's a stark reminder of the human cost of political decisions, which often seem disconnected from the realities of life on the ground. Recent events serve as a grim reminder that peace is often fragile and elusive. It's not just about geopolitics. It's about real people suffering the consequences of a conflict that seems to have no end in sight. The question lingers: how do we break this cycle? How do we create a space for dialogue rather than destruction? In the end, understanding these recent developments is crucial for envisioning a path forward. Humanitarian impact, When we talk about the humanitarian impact of the conflict, it's hard not to feel a deep sense of sadness. The reality is that countless civilians are caught in the crossfire, and their lives are forever changed. Displacement becomes a daily struggle for families, and it's heartbreaking to see how many people are forced to leave their homes, often with nothing but the clothes on their backs. The statistics are staggering, but behind each number is a personal story of loss and resilience. In places like Gaza, the situation can be dire. The infrastructure is often in shambles, and basic necessities like clean water, food, and medical care are in critically short supply. Imagine being a parent, desperately trying to provide for your children amidst bombings and chaos. The psychological toll on these communities is immense. Children grow up in an environment of fear and uncertainty, which can lead to long-term mental health issues. It's a cycle that seems unending. Victims of violence are not limited to those who lose their lives in the conflict. Many suffer from injuries that can change their lives forever. Hospitals are overwhelmed, and medical professionals struggle to keep up with the influx of casualties. In a region where healthcare is already fragile, the consequences are catastrophic. The lack of medical supplies and support only compounds the suffering, leaving families to navigate their grief and trauma alone. And let's not forget about the crises that arise from these situations. With each escalation in violence, the humanitarian crisis deepens. International aid becomes a lifeline for many, but delivering that aid is often fraught with challenges. Blockades and security concerns can delay or even prevent necessary assistance from reaching those who need it most. This creates a cycle of desperation that is difficult to break. Ultimately, the humanitarian impact extends beyond immediate needs. It affects the very fabric of society. Communities that once thrived now face the challenge of rebuilding amidst ongoing conflict. The scars of war are not just physical, they are emotional and social, reshaping identities and futures. Understanding this impact is crucial for anyone who seeks to grasp the full scope of the conflict. International reactions. When we turn our attention to international reactions, it's fascinating to see how varied and sometimes contradictory these responses can be. Governments around the world issue statements that often reflect their political alignments or interests. Some support Israel's right to defend itself, while others condemn the violence against Palestinians. This division highlights the complexities of global politics, where humanitarian concerns often take a backseat to strategic interests. Organizations like the United Nations and various NGOs are on the front lines, trying to provide aid and advocate for peace. Their voices are essential, yet they often face significant hurdles. Resolutions can be blocked or watered down, and the impact of their efforts can be mitigated by the realities on the ground. It's frustrating to watch these organizations fight for basic human rights, while the conflict rages on, seemingly without end. Media coverage also plays a crucial role in shaping public perception. News outlets highlight different aspects of the conflict, sometimes leading to polarized views. The narratives presented can influence the way people perceive the actions of both Israel and Palestine. It's a reminder of how powerful information can be and how easily it can be manipulated to serve various agendas. Grassroots movements have emerged globally, advocating for change and raising awareness about the situation. These movements often draw attention to the humanitarian crisis and push for a more balanced understanding of the conflict. Social media has amplified these voices, allowing people to share their stories and experiences, fostering a sense of solidarity across borders. In the end, the international reaction is a complex tapestry of support, condemnation, and advocacy. It reflects the intricate web of relationships between nations and the ongoing struggle for justice and peace. Understanding these reactions is vital, as they not only shape the immediate response, but also influence the long-term prospects for resolution. Perspectives on resolution. As I sit down to think about the conflict, the question of resolution looms large. It's a conundrum that seems insurmountable at times. How do you bring two sides that have been at odds for so long to the negotiating table? The idea of peace talks often feels like a distant dream, especially when each side has its own narrative and grievances that seem to stretch back decades, if not centuries. Yet, I can't help but wonder if there is a glimmer of hope hidden within the complexities of this struggle. Negotiations have often been attempted, and while some have yielded temporary ceasefires, they frequently collapse under the weight of mistrust and unresolved issues. I find myself considering the role of mediators in this process. Would a neutral party be able to facilitate a dialogue that leads to meaningful change? Perhaps organizations like the United Nations could play a more active role. But historically, that hasn't always gone smoothly. The key would be for both sides to see the benefits of compromise, a daunting task in a climate thick with animosity. Moreover, I think about the grassroots movements that have emerged from both Israeli and Palestinian communities advocating for peace and understanding. These voices, often drowned out by the clamor of political rhetoric, may hold the key to a sustainable solution. If ordinary people could connect and share their experiences, perhaps they could challenge the narratives that keep them divided. The potential for change often lies within the very communities that are most affected by the conflict. Yet, the question remains, what would a resolution look like? Would it involve a two-state solution, allowing both peoples to coexist with recognized borders? Or is there a more radical idea of a shared state, where both Israelis and Palestinians would have equal rights? Each option comes with its own set of challenges, and I often find myself pondering whether the desire for peace is strong enough to overcome these hurdles. The road to resolution is fraught with obstacles, but I remain cautiously optimistic. It takes time, patience, and a willingness to listen to one another. If the parties involved could find common ground, perhaps focusing on mutual interests like security and economic stability, they might just inch closer to a lasting peace. Only then can we hope for a future where children can grow up without the shadow of conflict looming over them. Regional and global implications. When I think about the conflict in Israel, I can't help but recognize its broader implications for the Middle East and beyond. This situation isn't just a local issue. It reverberates across borders and affects nations far and wide. The instability in this region has a ripple effect that touches economies, politics, and societies globally. For the Middle East, the ongoing tensions can exacerbate existing rivalries. Nations like Iran and Saudi Arabia, with their own agendas, often use the conflict to further their interests. It's almost like a chess game, where every move by one side elicits a response from the other, sometimes resulting in unintended consequences. The delicate balance of power in the region makes it imperative for surrounding countries to tread carefully, as any escalation can lead to wider conflicts that draw in international actors. I also think about the economic implications. The conflict stifles investment and development opportunities in both Israel and Palestine. Businesses are hesitant to invest in a region marked by uncertainty and violence. The resulting economic stagnation only fuels further discontent and can lead to increased radicalization among the youth. It's a vicious cycle that seems almost impossible to break, and I often wonder if economic cooperation could be a part of the solution. On a global scale, the conflict has implications for international relations, particularly between Western nations and those in the Arab world. The United States, for example, has historically played a significant role in mediating the conflict, but its actions often draw criticism from various quarters. How the U.S., and here we are, faced with a reality so complex and painful. What is happening in Israel and Palestine is not just a matter of territory or political power. These are human lives intertwined with stories of pain, loss, and resilience. They are parents losing their children, children growing up in the midst of fear, and entire communities struggling with all their strength to survive in a scenario of uncertainty and destruction. Each news of a new attack, each report of another displaced family, makes us ask, for how long? Will we ever find a way out of this cycle of violence and suffering? I like to believe that we will. That peace, though distant, is still possible. That somewhere, Beyond the trenches and the cries, there is room for dialogue, for mutual understanding, for the recognition of the other's pain. What is happening now is more than a confrontation between two peoples. It is a struggle for dignity, for hope, and the right to exist. The entire world watches, divided between indignation and despair, but also in the hope that the voice is calling for justice. And peace will prevail over the sounds of bombs and weapons. If you, like me, feel touched by this situation, if you believe that we can be agents of change, even from afar, then I invite you not only to reflect, but to act. Share this story, talk to your friends and family, and be part of this global dialogue. The world needs to understand that peace is a construction for all of us. And before we end, I want to ask you, who are still here? *** subscribe to the channel *** to continue following these important discussions. Together, we can use our voices to make a difference and perhaps contribute a little more to a better future. See you in the next video.